Desi for 19 years. I've been married to Gary for 23 this last week.
Lucille Ball built an empire from nothing, overcoming poverty, rejection, and personal tragedy to become one of the most influential figures in television history. But in her final hours, surrounded by medical staff and the hum of hospital equipment, she made a request that revealed the vulnerability beneath the legend. The last words she spoke were not about her children, her fortune, or her legacy. They were a plea for something far more personal. The story of Lucille Ball is not just a story of success. It is a story of resilience, heartbreak, and the haunting request that would become her final words. The early years and the roots of resilience. Lucille Desiree Ball was born on August 6, 1911, in Jamestown, New York, into a world that would soon be marked by tragedy and hardship. Her father, Henry Durrell Ball, worked as a telephone lineman, a job that required him to climb poles and maintain the growing network of communication lines that were connecting America. It was dangerous work, and in 1915, when Lucille was just 3 years old, tragedy struck. Her father contracted typhoid fever, a bacterial infection that was often fatal in the days before antibiotics. He died in February of that year, leaving behind a young widow and 2 small children. Lucille vividly recalled a bird getting trapped in the house on the day of her father's death. The memory was seared into her consciousness, and it sparked a lifelong phobia of birds that would stay with her for the rest of her life. The image of that bird, trapped and frantic, became a symbol of the chaos and loss that would define her early years. She would later describe the incident as one of her earliest and most vivid memories, a moment of terror that never fully left her. The phobia was so intense that she would cross the street to avoid birds, and she could never fully explain why such a small creature could cause her such profound fear. Her mother, Desiree Dede Ball, was pregnant with Lucille's brother at the time of her husband's death. Overwhelmed by grief and the responsibility of raising 2 children on her own, Dede made the difficult decision to leave Lucille and her brother Fred to be raised by strict, puritanical step-grandparents. The step-grandfather, Edward Peterson, was a man of rigid principles who believed that self-reflection bred vanity. He banned mirrors from the house, forcing young Lucille to use a hand mirror in secret if she wanted to see her own reflection. The household was austere and oppressive, a stark contrast to the warmth and affection that Lucille craved. She grew up in an environment where self-expression was discouraged and conformity was demanded. The lack of mirrors was a small but significant symbol of the repression that defined her childhood. She was not allowed to admire herself, to take pride in her appearance, or to dream of a life beyond the narrow confines of her grandparents' home. The ban on mirrors was a constant reminder that she was not supposed to think too highly of herself, that vanity was a sin, and that her desires were secondary to the expectations of others. The family's misfortunes continued when Lucille was 15. A neighborhood boy named Warner Erickson accidentally shot and paralyzed another local youth, Harry Bennett, with a firearm given to him by Lucille's grandfather, Fred Hunt. The Bennett family sued, and the resulting judgment caused the complete financial ruin of Lucille's grandfather. The family lost their home and all their possessions, plunging them into poverty. The public hostility and social isolation that followed deeply traumatized Lucille. She became determined to leave Jamestown and never look back. The shame of the family's fall from grace was unbearable, and Lucille dreamed of a life far from the judgmental eyes of her neighbors. She later reflected that the experience taught her never to rely on anyone but herself. a lesson that would serve her well in the years to come. The humiliation of the scandal was compounded by the loss of her childhood home, the only place she had ever known. She was forced to confront the reality that the people she loved could be taken from her at any moment, and that the world was a place of unpredictable cruelty. In 1926, Lucille enrolled in the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts in New York City, hoping to pursue a career in acting. But her dreams were quickly crushed. Her instructors, including those teaching future star Bette Davis, told her she lacked talent and was too shy to ever succeed. The rejection was devastating, but Lucille refused to give up. She worked under the pseudonym Diane Belmont as a hat model for fashion designer Hattie Carnegie, earning a meager living while continuing to audition for acting roles. She was even fired from her very first job at a local soda fountain for forgetting to put bananas in a banana split, a humiliating experience that reinforced her determination to succeed. The rejection was a pattern that would repeat itself throughout her early career, but Lucille never let it break her spirit. She learned to treat rejection as a challenge rather than a defeat, and she used it as motivation to work harder and prove her critics wrong. In her early 20s, Lucille contracted rheumatoid arthritis, a painful condition that left her unable to walk for 2 years. She was forced to return home for rigorous physical therapy, enduring hours of painful rehabilitation. The experience was a test of her resilience, and she emerged stronger and more determined than ever. The arthritis was a cruel blow, a reminder that her body was as fragile as her dreams. But Lucille refused to be defeated. She pushed through the pain, determined to regain her mobility and continue her pursuit of a career in entertainment. The experience taught her the value of perseverance and the importance of never giving up, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. She later credited the experience with giving her the strength to endure the challenges that would come later in her life. She moved to Hollywood in 1933, securing uncredited background extra roles, including a spot as a Goldwyn girl in Roman Scandals. She auditioned for the role of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, but was rejected by producer David O. Selznick. Over the next 15 years, she earned a reputation at RKO Radio Pictures as a reliable but secondary actress, earning the industry nickname Queen of the B-movies due to her starring roles in lower-budget films. It was not the career she had dreamed of, but it was a start. The years of struggle had taught her patience, and she was willing to wait for the right opportunity. She appeared in more than 70 films, often playing the comic relief or the best friend. But she never stopped believing that she was destined for something greater. The seeds of her resilience were planted in those early years of hardship and rejection. The woman who would one day become the queen of comedy had learned to fight for everything she had, and she would never stop fighting. Her childhood had been marked by loss, poverty, and rejection, but it had also given her the strength to endure whatever life threw at her. The road ahead would be challenging, but Lucille Ball was ready. She had survived the death of her father, the abandonment of her mother, the poverty of her grandparents' home, the humiliation of scandal, the rejection of drama school, the pain of arthritis, and the grind of Hollywood's B-movie factory. She had been knocked down more times than she could count, but she always got back up. That resilience would define her career and her life. The chaotic love life and professional breakthrough. The defining relationship of Lucille Ball's life began on the set of the 1940 RKO musical film Too Many Girls. She met Cuban bandleader Desi Arnaz, and their connection was immediate and intense. They experienced a volatile mutual attraction that could not be denied, and they eloped just months later on November 30th, 1940, in Greenwich, Connecticut. The ceremony was modest, held at the Byram River Dog Watchers Monument, and the bride wore a simple outfit that reflected the humble nature of their union. They exchanged cheap brass rings purchased from a Woolworth's department store. RKO studio bosses vehemently objected to the marriage, attempting to keep Desi marketed as a single bachelor to preserve his heartthrob appeal. But Lucille was determined to marry the man she loved, and she refused to let the studio dictate her personal life. The marriage was a defiance of the studio's expectations, a declaration of independence that would define her career. The marriage was tested early when Desi was drafted into the U.S. Army during World War II. The separation was difficult, compounded by Desi's frequent infidelity while touring with the United Service Organizations. Lucille was left alone to manage her career and her household, while Desi was surrounded by adoring women on the road. She filed for divorce for the first time in 1944, citing Desi's drinking and unfaithfulness. The decision was a painful one, but she felt she had no choice. However, she reconciled with him before the interlocutory decree became final, choosing to give their marriage another chance. It was a decision she would revisit many times over the years. The pattern of betrayal and reconciliation was exhausting, but Lucille was determined to make the marriage work. She loved Desi deeply, and she believed that their love could overcome any obstacle. She later admitted that she was a hopeless romantic, and that her love for Desi blinded her to his faults. When CBS wanted to adapt Lucille's radio show, My Favorite Husband, for television, they refused to cast Desi, believing that audiences would not accept an inter-ethnic marriage. The decision was a blow to Lucille's pride and a test of her commitment to her husband. To prove their appeal, Lucille and Desi funded a traveling vaudeville act, performing in cities across America to demonstrate that their chemistry could win over audiences. The gamble paid off. CBS finally agreed to cast Desi, and I Love Lucy was born. The show would go on to become one of the most successful television programs in history, but its success was born out of a determination to prove the network wrong. Lucille's and Desi's partnership was not just romantic, but professional, and their willingness to fight for each other laid the foundation for their empire. Lucille gave birth to their first child, Lucie Désirée Arnaz, in July 1951, when she was 39 years old. The birth was a moment of joy, but it was also a professional opportunity. Her real-life pregnancy was written into the television show, a historic move that required CBS to use the word expecting instead of pregnant, due to strict broadcast censorship. The broadcast of the episode where Lucy Ricardo gives birth drew 44 million viewers, outperforming the televised inauguration of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. It was a testament to the show's immense popularity and Lucille's extraordinary talent. The episode was a cultural milestone, a moment when television became a shared national experience. More than 60% of American households with televisions tuned in to watch Lucy give birth, a staggering number that reflected the show's dominance over American culture. In 1950, Lucille and Desi formed Desilu Productions, a company that would revolutionize the television industry. They pioneered the three-camera filming technique on 35mm film in front of a live studio audience, a template that invented the modern syndication rerun model. They negotiated full ownership rights to their episodes in exchange for a salary cut, laying the foundation for their multi-million-dollar media empire. The decision was risky, but it paid off beyond their wildest dreams. Desilu Productions became a powerhouse, producing some of the most iconic shows in television history. The studio was a testament to their vision and their willingness to take risks, and it changed the way television was made forever. The success of I Love Lucy was accompanied by immense personal strain. Desi's chronic alcoholism, gambling addictions, and rampant womanizing escalated under the stress of running a major studio. The couple reportedly slept in separate bedrooms on their estate and communicated on set primarily through notes passed by production assistants. The public saw a happy couple, but behind the scenes, their marriage was crumbling. Lucille filed for divorce on March 3, 1960, immediately after filming the final episode of the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour. The formal divorce was finalized on May 4, 1960, on the grounds of extreme mental cruelty. The marriage that had once seemed so perfect had ended in heartbreak. The divorce was a painful end to a relationship that had defined both of their lives, but it was also a necessary step for Lucille to reclaim her independence. The personal battles and the studio empire. The personal battles that defined Lucille Ball's life extended far beyond her tumultuous marriage to Desi Arnaz. Even as she achieved unprecedented success in the entertainment industry, she faced challenges that would have broken a lesser spirit. Her resilience was tested repeatedly, and each time she emerged stronger, more determined, and more fiercely independent. One of the most terrifying ordeals of Lucille's life came in the early 1950s, when she was caught in the crosshairs of the House Un-American Activities Committee. The Red Scare was sweeping through Hollywood, and no one was safe from suspicion. In 1952 and 1953, Lucille was subpoenaed by HUAC for registering to vote for the Communist Party in 1936. The registration had been an act of appeasement to her socialist grandfather, Fred Hunt, a man she deeply loved and respected. She had never been a member of the party, had never attended a meeting, and had never subscribed to its ideology. But the mere fact of her registration was enough to make her a target. The investigation threatened to destroy everything she had built. She was called to testify in secret, and she explained that she had never intended to vote communist and was simply doing what her grandfather had asked. Her testimony was compelling, and she was formally cleared of all subversive intent. But the experience left her shaken. She later admitted that the investigation was one of the most frightening experiences of her life, a moment when everything she had worked for could have been taken away in an instant. The fear was compounded by the knowledge that her career, her family, and her reputation were all at risk. Desi Arnaz, ever the showman, famously protected her before a live studio audience during the taping of an I Love Lucy episode. He announced to the crowd, "The only thing red about Lucy is her hair, and even that is fake." The joke diffused the tension and reassured the public that their beloved actress was not a threat. It was a moment of solidarity between the estranged couple, a reminder that, despite their personal struggles, they remained a formidable team. The investigation was a turning point in Lucille's life, a moment when she realized that she could not take her success for granted. She became more cautious about her public image and more protective of her private life. After buying out Desi's shares of Desilu Productions in 1962 for $2.5 million, Lucille became the first female president of a major Hollywood television studio. The achievement was historic, a breakthrough for women in an industry that had long been dominated by men. She was now the sole owner of a studio that had produced some of the most successful shows in television history. The responsibility was immense, but Lucille was ready for the challenge. She had spent years learning the business from the ground up, and she had a vision for what the studio could become. Lucille personally greenlit groundbreaking television franchises, including Star Trek and Mission Impossible. Both shows were risky investments, expensive to produce and uncertain to succeed. But Lucille had an instinct for quality, and she believed in the vision of the creators. She took a chance on Gene Roddenberry's ambitious science fiction series, and she supported Bruce Geller's spy thriller even when network executives expressed doubts. Her willingness to take risks paid off in spades. Both shows became cultural phenomena, and they cemented Desilu's reputation as a studio that was willing to push boundaries. Lucille gained a reputation in the industry as a demanding, uncompromising perfectionist on set. She had high standards, and she expected everyone around her to meet them. Writers, directors, and co-stars often found her intimidating. She would insist on multiple takes, critique performances, and demand changes to scripts that she felt were not up to her standards. Her perfectionism was exhausting for those who worked with her, but it was also the reason for her success. She understood that television was a medium of repetition, and she was determined to make every episode as good as it could possibly be. Her relationships with her co-stars were complex and often fraught with tension. She maintained a competitive relationship with Vivian Vance, the actress who played her best friend Ethel on I Love Lucy. Lucille was initially insecure about Vance's talent and charisma, and she allegedly enforced a contract clause that ensured Vance remained overweight on screen. The decision was a reflection of Lucille's insecurities and her determination to maintain her status as the show's star. She wanted to be the center of attention, and she allegedly felt threatened by anyone who might upstage her. Over time, however, their relationship evolved into a genuine friendship, and Lucille came to appreciate Vance's contributions to the show. The off-screen relationship between William Frawley and Vivian Vance was even more fraught. The actors reportedly despised each other intensely in real life, completely refusing to speak off-camera. Frawley was a heavy drinker with a sharp tongue, and Vance found him difficult and unpleasant. Their animosity disrupted production and prevented a planned spin-off series. Lucille was caught in the middle, forced to manage the egos of her co-stars while keeping the show running. She was a master of maintaining order, but the constant tension took a toll on her emotional well-being. Lucille sold Desilu Productions to Gulf Plus Western in 1967 for $17 million, a staggering sum that reflected the value of the studio she had built. The sale was a testament to her business acumen and her ability to recognize when it was time to move on. She was ready for a new chapter in her life, and the sale gave her the financial freedom to pursue other projects. But the sale was also bittersweet, a farewell to a company that had been at the center of her life for so many years. The second marriage and business partnership. Following her divorce from Desi, Lucille Ball was determined to find stability and peace in her personal life. She had spent years in a tumultuous marriage, and she was ready for something different. In 1960, she met stand-up comedian Gary Morton on a blind date at a New York restaurant arranged by friend Jack Carter. The meeting was serendipitous, a chance encounter that would lead to a lasting partnership. Morton claimed he had never seen an episode of I Love Lucy due to working late nights in nightclubs, a confession that charmed Lucille. She found his honesty refreshing, and she was drawn to his sense of humor and his easygoing manner. He was not intimidated by her fame, and he treated her as an equal. The relationship developed quickly, and they were married on November 19, 1961, at the Marble Collegiate Church in New York City. The ceremony was modest, a far cry from the Hollywood spectacles that had surrounded her first marriage. Lucille was in her 50s, and she was no longer interested in the chaos of youth. She wanted a partner who would support her, not compete with her. Morton became a producer at her newly established company, Lucille Ball Productions, helping oversee her later television projects like The Lucy Show and Here's Lucy. He brought a sense of calm and organization to her professional life, managing the day-to-day operations, while Lucille focused on the creative aspects of the productions. He was a steadying presence, a man who understood the importance of structure and routine. Lucille had spent years managing the chaos of Desilu Productions, and she was grateful to have a partner who could share the burden. Friends and family noted that while Morton provided emotional stability and protection from the public eye, he lacked the passionate artistic synergy she had shared with Desi Arnaz. The relationship with Desi had been fiery and creative, a partnership that produced some of the most innovative work in television history. But it had also been destructive, marked by infidelity, addiction, and emotional turmoil. Morton was different. He was reliable, supportive, and undemanding. He did not challenge her creatively, but he also did not cause her pain. For Lucille, that was enough. The marriage was a partnership that allowed Lucille to focus on her career, while Morton managed the details of her professional life. She trusted him to handle the negotiations, the contracts, and the logistics, freeing her to concentrate on what she did best. The arrangement worked well for both of them, and they remained together until Lucille's death. Lucille's later television projects, The Lucy Show and Here's Lucy, were successful in their own right, but they never achieved the cultural dominance of I Love Lucy. The magic of the earlier show was impossible to recreate, and Lucille was aware of the limitations. But she continued to work, driven by a love of performing and a desire to stay connected to her audience. Morton was by her side through all of it, a constant presence in her life. He accompanied her to events, supported her through the challenges of aging, and provided a sense of stability that had been missing from her earlier years. Their marriage was not without its struggles, but it was a partnership that endured. Lucille had finally found the stability she had been searching for, and she was grateful for the years she shared with Morton. Their marriage was a reminder that love could take many forms, and that sometimes the most enduring partnerships are built on stability rather than passion. The final days and last request of Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball made her final public appearance at the 61st Academy Awards on March 29, 1989, alongside Bob Hope. She appeared visibly frail, losing weight rapidly, and required assistance walking backstage due to severe physical exhaustion. The audience gave her a standing ovation, unaware that this would be their last glimpse of the woman who had made them laugh for so many years. The applause was a tribute to a lifetime of achievement, but it was also a farewell. On April 18, 1989, Lucille suffered a massive heart attack at her Beverly Hills home and was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. She underwent a grueling emergency 7-hour open-heart surgery to replace her aortic valve. The surgery was successful, and she appeared to be recovering. But while recovering in her hospital bed, she reportedly awoke in a state of deep distress and disorientation, experiencing sharp back pain. When her medical staff asked if there was anything she needed or wanted, she whispered her final request. She wanted her Florida water. This was not a request for regular water, but for her lifelong signature citrus and clove cologne. She had used it for years to soothe her anxiety and bring her comfort during times of severe panic. The request was a final plea for the familiar, a desire for the comfort of a scent that had been with her through so many difficult moments. Shortly after making this request, she reportedly suffered an unexpected, catastrophic rupture of her abdominal aorta and lost consciousness. She was pronounced dead at 5:47 a.m. on April 26, 1989, at the age of 77. Lucille Ball was initially buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, Los Angeles. In 2003, her children disinterred her remains to fulfill her long-held wish to be buried with her family. Her ashes were transferred to Lakeview Cemetery in Jamestown, New York, where she lies beside her mother, Deed, and her grandfather. The return to Jamestown was a homecoming, a final journey to the place where her story had begun. She left behind a massive estate valued at approximately $40 million at the time of her death. Her will divided the fortune evenly between her husband, Gary Morton, and her 2 children. Morton inherited her personal property, jewelry, and intimate memorabilia. Following Morton's death in 1999, his second wife, Susan McAllister, inherited these belongings, triggering a bitter legal battle when she placed Lucille's personal love letters, family photo albums, Lifetime Achievement Awards, and her personal Rolls-Royce up for public auction. Lucy Arnaz successfully sued to halt the auction of the Lifetime Achievement Awards, but the court allowed the private family photographs and historic love letters between Lucy and Desi to be sold to private collectors. In her final moments, she was not the queen of comedy. She was just a woman in pain, reaching for the familiar comfort of a scent that had been with her through decades of anxiety and fear. Her legacy endures, not just in the laughter she brought to the world, but also in the quiet moments of humanity that remind us of the person behind the legend. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.